Good morning, everybody, and I want to welcome you to the fourth of class in our series of exploring Jewish prayer. And today I want to talk about prayers of praise because we've already talked about study and we've talked about prayers of petition. And today, prayers of praise, our third part of the three legs of Jewish prayer. And actually, I want to stay with the same prayer that we began with last week, and that was the Amidah. For the Amidah opens with prayers of praise. We begin with praise. And I want to take a look at it with you for just a second. And as you see, the Amidah opens with this beautiful meditation. Adonai Sevatai Tiftachu fi Giti Latecha, my master, open my lips and my mouth will declare your praise. It's a kind of statement that we say silently before we begin the Amidah. And then we begin with these words, blessed are you, Adonai, our God and God of our fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. In our prayer book, we add Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. The Almighty, the great, the powerful, the awesome, the Most High Almighty, who bestows beneficent kindness, who possesses everything, who remembers the piety of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and who brings a redeemer to their children's children for the sake of God's name with love. You see, we start off this prayer of the Amidah talking very pointedly about praise. And why do we do that? Well, I think there's a couple of functions here that are going on, a few things that are taking place at exactly the same time. First and foremost is we are expressing gratitude for all the things we have. As we are praising, we are saying, look at how much we have. Look at what we have. Now, some would say we're reminding God, but I think we're not only reminding God, I think we're reminding ourselves. Before we can ever begin any of those other parts of prayer, especially the petition that comes right after this, before we begin that, we have to remind ourselves of what it is we do have, what it is that we are grateful for, because I think it makes all the difference in the world to start a petitionary prayer with a sense of gratitude, with a sense of saying, yes, I know that I have been given much. I know that I have much, but here's what I desire. Here's what I want in my life. And there's something else going on there as well, because we're also reminding ourselves who we are. Now, some say we're reminding God who we are, and certainly that may be that God needs a little remembrance that we are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But I think it's more likely that we're reminding ourselves who we are. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. That's who we are. Spiritually, we are their descendants, and spiritually, we have inherited, at least in our own minds, the promises that we are going to continue to enjoy God's bounty, God, all the things that we have in life, all the things that we have been given. That is how we enter into this attitude of petition later on, by recognizing who we are in this world. If we can't identify ourselves, if we can't know who we are as we stand here, how can we begin to ask for anything? By that same token, we're not saying, here I stand, David Kamen, an individual, asking for these things. No. Here I stand as a member of a community. Our prayer reminds us, too, that we are part of a community, not just a community in a particular place or even in a particular time, but a community that stretches through generations and that encompasses an entire world. That's how we begin our prayer. That's how our praise begins to touch us and begins to affect us. So praise is not just a bunch of words that are coming out of our mouth. And it's not simply just because we have this idea in our mind that maybe God needs to hear our praise, because I don't believe that at all. What I do believe is that we are reminding ourselves of something very important. And that's how we begin our prayer. That's how we start to pray. Incidentally, as we stand to say the Amidah, and I explained to you last week about the Amidah, there is a particular way that we stand. We stand with our feet together in place, and as we say these words in the praise section, Baruch Atah Adonai, on the word Baruch, we bend our knees. On the word Atah, or you, we bow at our hips. And on the word Adonai, we stand straight up. It's a particularly unusual bowing movement that is documented all the way back into the Talmud. And the movement itself is thought of in this way. Essentially, the bending of the knee is a kind of genuflection. It's kind of going down. It's a symbol of going down, all the way down to the floor on one's knees. That's how we begin asking for something, by going all the way down. Bending at the hips is a kind of acknowledgement that there is that we're not at the center of the universe, kind of acknowledgement that this is not only about us. And then standing straight up when we hear the word Adonai is our particular way of saying, here we are to address God, and we are not addressing God with our heads down, but rather standing straight and proud of who we are. Not subservient, but in conversation with. That's how we begin our Amidah, in conversation with, and engendering a particular attitude that's part of who we are. I think that these three types of prayer that we've mentioned, study, petition, and praise, work in harmony with one another. They're all part of the same thing about how do we begin to change ourselves through prayers, through words, through reflection. And, the Siddur is full of prayers of praise, by the way. This is not the only time. Over and over again, we're going to find prayers of praise. In fact, almost every single blessing that we do, let's say when we light the Hanukkah candles in just a few weeks, we begin the blessing, blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe. It's a prayer of praise. And then we thank God for giving us the commandment to light the candles that we're lighting, whether they're Hanukkah candles or Shabbat candles, or holiday, just general holiday candles. That is how we begin. We begin with this sense, with this attitude. And, I think we could say, what would the world be like if the whole world began their day with an attitude of gratitude? What would the world be like? What would people be like if the first thing they said to themselves is, gee whiz, how grateful I am for who I am, where I am, and what I am? There's other things to be said about the Amidah, and about how these prayers work in our life. I hope you'll join us for our discussion on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock in our synagogue Zoom room. And I have some questions I'm going to ask about prayer and about how we approach Jewish prayer. Stay tuned with us in future weeks. Every week we're going to take just a few minutes to talk about one aspect of Jewish prayer, one aspect of exploring our prayer book, our Siddur, and our tradition. Thank you.